Kingdom Hearts, what a unique video game franchise. Despite only having 2 numbered entries in the series so far, it has a mind-boggling amount of games across an equally mind-boggling amount of platforms, many of which are essential to understanding the overarching plot. Kingdom Hearts 2.8 is the latest piece of the puzzle, and all of it is meant to contextualise and precede the highly anticipated Kingdom Hearts 3. It's also a load of old bollocks. Think of everything good about your favourite Kingdom Hearts games. The first had robust and weighty combat, which gave a great challenge. It also had great platforming based exploration, which unfortunately the second game scrapped. But Kingdom Hearts 2 had fast paced, free flowing combat, which some might have preferred. Birth by Sleep returned to the slower paced combat of Kingdom Hearts 1, but was much more of a power trip through deeper and wider customization of increasingly powerful moves. Most importantly, it fixed the pathetically weak magic of previous games. In my mind, these are the 3 cornerstones of enjoyable, coherent Kingdom Hearts games. Unfortunately, as we know from many of Square Enix's recent first-party games, they have completely forgotten what made their games good in the first place, and the first entry in the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 collection is no exception to that. Kingdom Hearts 3D Dream Drop Distance, originally released on the 3DS in 2012, seemed promising upon first impression, and it actually continues the story where Kingdom Hearts 2 left off. Yen Sid has tasked Sora and Riku to take the Mark of Mastery exam and become true Keyblade masters. In Birth by Sleep, this involved Aqua and Terra fighting some glowing orbs, and then each other, but understandably this was changed, and perhaps what follows is just Yen Sid's particular way of testing. When the game started out, I logically assumed that Yen Sid had put Sora and Riku in a dreamlike state, where they would visit these worlds to train themselves, mentally more than physically. Unfortunately, this is not the case. It turns out that the worlds destroyed by the Heartless in the first game are only partially restored and are now sleeping. I simply cannot understand why writers Tetsuya Nomura and Masaru Oka decided to do this. It feels like they just went with the first idea that popped into their head, and the events of the game seem to contradict everything we know. Sora and Riku, despite not being in a dream, are back to their original younger appearance. All their powers are gone, yet they can travel between these sleeping worlds by diving, a mechanic which, unlike the armour in Birth by Sleep, does not have any particular story purpose for existing. Unless they were in a dream, which they aren't. The new flow motion ability enabling the characters to wall jump and zip around the much larger environments that this game has is something which seems tied to the characters from The World Ends With You, which we meet in Traverse Town, the first world. This is again at odds with the logic of the story. You wouldn't see Quasimodo, for instance, zipping about wall jumping all over the place, just because these worlds are sleeping. The basics of combat are pretty much a simplified version of Kingdom Hearts 1, with this flow motion system completely tacked on and very clunky in how it controls. But its worst offence is that while doing these moves, at any time the player can perform powerful special moves that throw enemies around or hit an area of effect. With unlimited access to these environmental special moves, the core combat of Dream Drop Distance is rendered a pointless, repetitive, frustrating mess. Nomura didn't just settle for one tacked-on system though. The new enemies in this game are called Dream Eaters, and are stylistically more cute and colourful than previous enemy types. Riding a trend that Level 5 also rode to huge success with their blatant Pokemon rip-off Yokai Watch, and slightly more original Ni no Kuni, the player can now train their own Dream Eaters and add them to the team in place of Donald and Goofy. The game makes some minor attempts to give this system some relevance in combat, first of all by allowing the player to use special team moves depending on the types of Dream Eaters in the party. Secondly, by tying these abilities and stats of the player to the growth of the Dream Eaters. Unfortunately, these abilities, though similar to other Kingdom Hearts games on the surface, feel far more arbitrary and incremental. Worst of all, the AI is simply awful, Often these cute creatures would rather wander around aimlessly than contribute to the fight. The second game to look at is Kingdom Hearts 0.2 A Fragmentary Passage, and with Aqua being my favourite Kingdom Hearts character, I was probably looking forward to this game even more, as it continues her journey through the realm of darkness. It's also somewhat of a tech demo for Kingdom Hearts 3, as it uses the Unreal Engine and has modern graphics, including some beautiful particle effects, which one would expect of Unreal. This game does a lot of things right. Magic looks and feels incredibly powerful, the creepy atmosphere of the dark world is spot on, and exploration as well as platforming seem to be making a comeback, but for everything this game does right, it falls flat on its arse with something else. Moving Aqua around feels immediately hideous. It's incredibly floaty, and there's this strange acceleration effect where, after moving forward for a second or two, Aqua will suddenly speed up way beyond what would feel like natural human movement. Some of her animations are clearly unfinished, such as the cartwheel, which at a certain point just teleports her into an upright position. Minor physics bugs, aliasing, a camera which never seems to be where you want it to be, these are all issues which really should have no excuse to be in a game from a team who should know exactly what they're doing by now. Enemy AI is a vast improvement over Dream Drop Distance, but playing on Proud mode is not particularly balanced. Many attacks will come from behind or seem unavoidable, and blocking and jumping seem to become unresponsive just at the times you need them most. The most unenjoyable section of the game comes when Aqua must fight the same frustrating boss 3 times. This boss teleports around constantly and throws moves at you which are often practically unavoidable. It's so cheap that when you lose it doesn't feel like you've actually learned anything. They decided to bring back the charging MP bar, which was by far the worst part of Kingdom Hearts 2's combat, and it means that in these moments when you know you're probably gonna die from some cheap move, you'll be running around aimlessly just waiting for that stupid bar to fill, so you can cast a cure spell, which of course uses the entire bar all over again. This game seems like a similar idea to Metal Gear Solid Ground Zeroes, but the difference is Ground Zeroes was incredibly polished and felt rewarding to replay almost endlessly. Fragmentary Passage rewards the player by letting them dress up Aqua, which is quite nice in theory, but a lot of the clothes, especially the ones you can put on her back, just look like it was thrown together in a couple of minutes and shoved in there. All in all, this just doesn't feel like playing a Kingdom Hearts game. It feels more like playing a prototype for a game that has just launched its Kickstarter campaign. Of course, one that I might consider backing, but with this apparently being a taste of what Kingdom Hearts 3 can offer, this is where I start to get a little worried. The final part of Kingdom Hearts 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue is a short CG film which seemed primed to fill in some of the gaps in the complex history of Kingdom Hearts. What is the true purpose of the Keyblade? Why and how were the worlds split apart? And why is Xehanort such an evil bastard? With the writing of Kingdom Hearts on the whole being quite hit and miss, all I wanted from this was to be told a simple origin story with a few well realised and unique characters that explained some of the more out there concepts of the Kingdom Hearts universe. What I got was a cryptic mess starring the most typically Japanese cliché characters ever. The stoic and serious leader, the easily manipulated brute who believes he would be best suited for leadership, the youngest of the bunch who is sickeningly unsure of herself. Various Final Fantasies explored these character tropes years ago. Then there's the character who I hesitate to call the antagonist, who is apparently responsible for breaking up the worlds, and in the game's own words, is now the most important and possibly powerful character in the entire series. What do we know about this man? He is an intensely irritating joker who is hard to take seriously as any kind of threat.
You been here long? My bad.
No.
So, what did you want?
You didn't forget, did you? You're the one who called me here.
Lighten up! I was just kidding! I didn't forget. Give me a little credit here. I was just testing you.
He put his eye on the no-name Keyblade so he could see into the future and one day be resurrected. He also put something in a locked box and said never to open it. The hows and whys of this situation are apparently not important. This is presented with some truly lifeless voice acting, and it all culminates with the realisation that we now have about 1 billion unanswered questions on top of any we might have had after the end of Kingdom Hearts 2. So on to Kingdom Hearts 3, which upon release could, of course, be everything we hope it should be, but to temper our expectations, let's recap on some of the things that Tetsuya Nomura and his team should have learned from previous games. In my opinion, Kingdom Hearts 1 is the only game in the series that is perfectly balanced for a proud mode playthrough. Each encounter is challenging, yet damage can mostly be avoided by studying your enemy and utilising all of Sora's abilities. Though levelling up allowed small customisations and abilities which were useful on a situational basis, Sora never became overpowered. The other games, however, have some frustrating enemies and plenty of ways to die without knowing how or why. Looking at you nobodies, you flailing bastards. AI is possibly the most important thing in most games, certainly when it comes to Kingdom Hearts combat, but if you study the trailers so far, you will notice that while everything looks great, the enemies are usually just standing around or walking in circles, and we barely ever see Sora having to avoid damage. He is absolutely destroying the Heartless in all of the trailers, and a lot of it seems tied to the shotlock system. This mechanic was overpowered in Birth by Sleep, and almost useless in Fragmentary Passage, which leaves me wondering if it really needs such a big place in Kingdom Hearts 3. Will it detract from the fun just to show off some flashy particle effect heavy Rain of Death? Or will it be a failsafe to get out of a sticky situation, as the drive gauge was in Kingdom Hearts 2? As important as the combat is, I think exploration and level design needs to be seriously considered in Kingdom Hearts 3. The second game was severely lacking in this department, and the world seemed to lack the character that the first game had. Using Sora's abilities to find hidden areas, such as in Agrabah's Waterfall Cave, where reaching certain ledges needed a high jump or even a glide, was incredibly satisfying. Recent Japanese RPGs have been terrible for connecting circular combat arenas with various lengths of corridors and considering that level design. It's not, and it needs to stop. As for the story, this is something that at this point I really don't think can be salvaged. It's all a complete mess, and I think it's down to being too eager to release too many games. It's gotten to the point where there are now more bad Kingdom Hearts games than there are good. There is no possible way Kingdom Hearts 3 can explain the nonsense presented in 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, so the best thing that could happen is that Kingdom Hearts 3 completely ignores it. One of my biggest worries is failing to do justice to the characters, a big part of which is the voice acting, which seemed jarringly bad in some of 2.8. This line from Mickey, for example.
She fell to a place from which there is no return without outside help.
I saw her in the realm of darkness. Sorry, that's what it should have sounded like. What it actually sounded like was...
Place from which there is no return without outside help.
I saw her in the realm of darkness.
That is so lame!
This to me suggests poor direction, and comes as yet another worrying sign on top of the increasingly bad game design choices we've seen from Tetsuya Nomura and his team. After all of Square Enix's recent failings, Drakengard 3 and Star Ocean 5's abysmal budget, Final Fantasy XV being released completely unfinished, and now this truly disappointing Kingdom Hearts 2.8, I cannot help but worry about the quality of Kingdom Hearts 3. Tetsuya Nomura and his team need to take a step back and look at what made Kingdom Hearts good in the first place. Not least of all, it was a simple, character-driven story about light versus dark. I've been Jake of theretroperspective.com, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe.